Good morning, everyone, and welcome to News Extra. My guest this morning is Nancy Bentley, who is with Western Nebraska Housing Partners. Is that correct?
Yes, Housing Partners of Western Nebraska.
Western Nebraska. Had to make sure that I got the title correct. And we're talking about the Fair Housing Conference, which had been scheduled earlier in the year, but of course, weather that we've had here in March and April has kind of wreaked havoc on things.
It did, and we had presenters coming from Cheyenne and Omaha that could not make it. So we've rescheduled for May 15th. It looks like a beautiful day according to KNEB weather.
Yeah, we'll have to put Bill on spot to make sure that we keep that weather the way it's supposed to be for a nice day in the middle of May. With the conference itself, what type of presentations can we expect for people that would attend?
Well, we have presenters from Nebraska Equal Opportunity Commission, and that's Ben Watson. He's been out here before a couple of years. Ben will give us some really good information on reasonable accommodations and things to look for there. We also have Doug Vasquez, and he's a district manager for Presto X. We're going to be looking at pests that landlords run into. That could be anything from mice and spiders on up to those things like bedbugs that we really hate to encounter.
And this is not the first year for the housing conference. This would be the seventh conference that we're going to have?
That's correct. We've been bringing this out here for 7 years. Otherwise, folks would have to travel to Lincoln, Norfolk, or Fremont to get this same type of training. Okay.
And is that the primary reason that it was started out here? Was that there was so much travel involved previous to this? Or was there any one thing that helped lead to having a fair housing conference here locally?
I think the fact that landlords many times are misinformed on what the rules and regulations regarding fair housing are was how it was primarily started. Folks thought they could go into their residents' homes anytime they wanted to and didn't have to give notice, would be just one example. So we want to make sure that everyone, the tenants as well as the landlords, are informed on fair housing.
Okay, and this, of course, this conference is coming up May 15th at the Gering Civic Center. And registrations, we'll get to that in just a moment, as well as talk about a couple of the issues that we may see more frequently out here that we might not see in other parts of the state. We'll have that when we come back on News Extra. And we're back on News Extra, and my guest this morning is Nancy Bentley with Housing Partnership of Western Nebraska. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you.
We're talking about the Fair Housing Conference that's coming up May 15th at the Gering Civic Center. There's all kinds of issues that tenants and landlords may or may not be aware of. That there's some rules on how to handle different things. Do we see certain things out here, certain issues out here more frequently that we then say folks may see back east?
I think one of the things that's common throughout the state is a good understanding about emotional support animals, companion animals, versus service animals. And at this conference, our presenters will go over the differences of each of those and how landlords will handle them. Out here, we also see perhaps landlords don't understand that they need to give proper notice before entering into a tenant's home. And sometimes they just enter. And so, of course, that would be a fair housing violation. So we really want to educate our tenants as well as landlords on what's the appropriate way to do business and make sure we're not violating any fair housing rules.
And to keep the relationship between landlords and tenants civil, because we know at times it can devolve into not so civil interactions that take place.
That's correct.
And that usually ends up not being a good situation for anybody involved more often than not. Now, for as registration is concerned, we had the event originally planned for April, and people would have registered at that time. Are those registrations still good? How does that work?
Yes, their registrations are still good, and we've opened up the additional registration on the Panhandle Partnership Training Academy website. That will go through May 10th. They can still even register on site.
Okay.
And so the registration fees won't be late until after May 10th, and then on site the registration fee would be $30. But that includes breakfast and lunch and some snacks. So come learn, eat, get familiar with other landlords in the area, share information, share stories, and learn.
And if you happen to be somebody who's a tenant who wants to get information but maybe $20 or $30 might be a little bit out of your reach, there's some help in that respect.
Yes,
as
there
well.
is. I do have some scholarship funds available for tenants that would like to come, and all they need to do is contact me. I'm Nancy Bentley, and they can give me a call at 632-0473, and we'll get them registered and take care of everything for them.
And of course, this is also for property professionals.
Oh, yes. We'll have folks that manage a large number of properties all the way down to the landlord that just might have one property. It'll be both private landlords, public funded, governmental landlords as well. So we're hoping for a really good turnout. In the past 7 years, we've averaged between 90 and 100 people at our event.
Wow, it's quite a few.
Yes.
And I can imagine that when there are issues that do arise, it's probably more likely than not that it's somebody who's new to being a landlord potentially and hasn't, gone through all of the training maybe to know exactly what is allowable, what's not, what should be in contracts, what isn't.
The good thing about this training, Scott, is that realtors who often manage property as well can get their CEU hours, which is their continuing education. So we encourage those folks as well to come.
And again, how to register for the event?
They go on the Panhandle Partnership Training Academy website and pull up the link for the May 15th Fair Housing Conference. That
is the Fair Housing Conference, as Nancy said, coming up May 15th at the Gering Civic Center. You can pre-register still $20. If you pre-register, late registration is $25, and then on-site is $30 the day of the event itself. Nancy, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Scott.